Welcome to this video tutorial series for NobleForms. What you're looking at now is the home screen of a hypothetical law firm called the Olson firm. I'm going to be using this hypothetical firm during the series to explain how NobleForms works. Hi, I'm Richard Noble, the Oregon lawyer who started NobleForms back in 2015. Since then, NobleForms has been offering Oregon lawyers the opportunity to use NobleForms templates in their estate planning, trust administration, and probate practices. I'm recording this video today, July 14, 2024, to help current subscribers and future subscribers understand some changes that have occurred in how the NobleForms site works. This is the first video in a series of videos that will be a resource for you in learning how to use the NobleForms templates. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce you to the new look of NobleForms, which is what you see on the screen right now. This is the workspace for a hypothetical subscribing law firm called the Olson firm. John Olson is one of the attorneys. I'm going to be using this firm to explain how you would use NobleForms in your practice. A bit of historical information. Previously, NobleForms was hosted by HotDocs Market, and the templates were created in HotDocs Market, a very popular document assembly software program. Unfortunately, due to corporate reorganizations, HotDocs has decided to discontinue HotDocs Market. NobleForms has been forced to find a new host for its template subscription service. The new host is Nacli, which produces document assembly software similar to HotDocs and provides a hosting service for service providers like NobleForms. The templates had to be recoded using the Nacli software. That has been a very expensive and time-consuming process. However, the final result is a great improvement over the old HotDocs system, and NobleForms is proud to offer it to its subscribers. In the old NobleForms on HotDocs Market, the attorney had to gather information from clients the old-fashioned way, using an Adobe form which was emailed to the client, and then when the client emailed the form back, the information had to be manually retyped by the attorney or by the attorney's paralegal into the HotDocs template set. That now is part of the past, because the big improvement now is that a subscribing attorney can email a link for an online client interview form to a client, which the client can then fill out online. The answers provided by the client dovetail right into the document assembly performed by the attorney without any data reentry. The process is much less labor-intensive as a result. For those of you who are current subscribers, you will be glad to know that the documents themselves, as created in Word, are exactly the same as before, and basically the questions that the attorney is asked in the document assembly process are more or less the same. It's just that the look of the site is slightly different. What I'd like to do today and in the videos that follow is to walk you through the process of creating an estate plan for a client to familiarize you with the new look of NobleForms. Let's take a closer look at the screen. Once you have subscribed to the new NobleForms, you will have a screen like this, your own site. This works in any browser and on any device. Where is the information on your firm? Well, let's look on the right side of the screen and click on Firm Options. When you hover over Firm Options, you see that you could go Firm, Enter Information. So let's click on that. In this hypothetical Olson firm, there are two attorneys, Whitney and John. Let's click on John Olson. Well, here's where the information is on John Olson. You can edit this information, and when you're done, you would save it. And then to add another attorney, you would click the plus sign, and this box would open, and you have the opportunity to add another attorney. Then you would click OK. Now let's take a look at the left side of the screen and look at records. The attorney in this example has already prepared several estate plans, and they are listed here under records. To bring up a record to continue working on a case, you would type the name of the client in the search box. Let's find the record on Samuel Smith by typing Smith in the search box. That's how you'd bring the Smith case up again in order to keep working on that estate plan. Notice that the name of the clients is provided. And also notice that there is a interview link that has been produced here that's hyperlinked. This is the link that you would copy and send to a client in an email to let the client work on the client interview form online. Notice there are three different boxes here. There's the client interview, and it has a document in it. There's the estate plan box, and then there's another box that has funding, fees, and explanatory material. Now, I'm not going to go into these right now. Instead, what I'm going to do is start a new case, and I'm going to show you how to do that next. Let's say you want to start working on a trust plan for John and Jane Jones. How would that case start? Well, perhaps you got an email from a prospective client asking for an appointment. Perhaps you took a phone call from a prospective client. What you should do is open up your NobleForms site and start a client interview to record information about the new client. Here's how you do it. It's really quite simple. You take your mouse and hover over New Client or File, and then you select Client Interview. A blank form opens. How is this to be filled out? Now, there's another video tutorial that I've made that goes into great detail explaining how to fill out the client interview. It's on YouTube. You can send a link to your client to point them to this YouTube video. And you can also view this video. The link to it is in the commentary below. Well, I'm going to show you how to start filling out the client interview. Keep in mind that if you enter the name of the first client and the email address for the first client, and that is all you do, then a hyperlink is created, which you can copy and paste into an email and send to your client. Then your client can open the client interview that you've created and complete entering the information. And you'll be notified when that occurs, and then you can go into it and continue working on it, as you need to. How much you type in the client interview at the outset is completely up to you. Perhaps you are on the phone with the client when you start the form. In that case, maybe you would ask a lot of questions and type in a lot of information. Well, let's just do the minimum. Let's type in the name for John Andrew Jones and his email address. Well, there's one thing you have to do first. You have to click up here and indicate what type of client you have. So this would be a married couple creating documents for both spouses. Once that's done, you can go down to the first spouse information. And the way this form works in general is there are arrows that if you click the arrow, then a box opens. And here's where we're going to type the name of the client. And then we're going to go ahead and scroll down a little bit till we find his email address down here. And just type in his email address. And to save your work, you just would click OK. Now, at that point, you could keep working or not. If you wanted to just leave this form without creating the hyperlink, which you probably wouldn't want to do, you can just click Finish Later. And you can do that anytime you're working in these documents. You can do Finish Later and come back. But what we want to do is create a document, because remember, you have to put in the name, an email address, and at least create one document for the hyperlink to be created. So let's click Create Docs. And now you have, you can see here, you're not looking at the client interview anymore. You're looking at your site on NobleForms, and you can see it. This is just one of the cases you're working on. Oh, look, I spelled Jones wrong. Great. Well, we can go back and edit that later. No big problem. But you have here, this is the hyperlink right here. So now if I want to change that, if I want to change it before I send it, what I would do is click on Review or Update and go back into John Jones and fix it. Just put John Jones and say OK, and then create the document again. That's an example of how you can fix something. Now I've got the document here. You see, it's a Word document, and if I typed in the spouse's name, it would have had her name up here too. I can go back and add it later. But you see it's a .docx document, but I can't see it. So what you have to do is, to see the document, you have to click on it and you just save it. So I'm going to click it and save it to some part of my server where we have information on John Jones. So here's a place where I have John Jones. So I'm going to go ahead and you see that the file is already named Client Information for John A. Jones and Spouse, and go Save. I probably would have put her name in too. Now at this point, if I want to see the document, I could go back to the server where it's located and double click on it and open it like any Word document. But actually, I can see it up here in the downloads. So here it is right here. And if I click on it, then it's going to open up in Word. And I can see the document. There's not any information in it yet, but you kind of get the idea of what the client interview looks like when it's filled out. It has all the notes. It has client information, his information, her information. It's got people who would be the representatives. They haven't been filled in yet, but when they're filled in, it'll be here. You have any disinherited persons. You have the distribution plan. It's starting to build a spreadsheet showing the assets. Of course, we haven't put any assets in. But what you do is when you get it back from the client, it's going to be all filled in when you open it next time. You can resave it to your computer with the updated information. You may talk to the client and make some more changes. Just save it again. Keep saving it and resaving it. And then when you're going to do the estate planning documents like the trust and the will, etc., you open up that client interview and you put it on the screen next to you on your side screen. So you can read it and just see what the answers are when you're doing the document assembly. Well, anyway, that's how you get the link for the client. Let's imagine that John and Jane have completed the client interview form. You got an email that said that they'd completed it. You don't really need an email. You could have checked anytime from your site on NobleForms and opened the form. You could have seen if they'd been working on the form or not. But let's assume they're super clients and that they really did it. Now you're looking at their case on your site on NobleForms. That's what's on the screen right now. You see where it says client interview? And do you see where it says review or update? You click on review and update and the client interview form will open. Let's click review or update. Let's review the answers and see what they've entered. Let's take a few minutes and review the answers that John and Jane have made to the different questions in the form. Let's just kind of review them all and see if it looks like it's complete. So if we open up John, we see everything looks pretty good here. He's got his birth date and everything. Got his phone, everything. That looks good. Take a look at Jane. Same thing. They do have children. They're young. They've got that information all entered here. Don't have any phone numbers, but they probably don't have a phone. It's really not important anyway for the template. The same, take a look at the daughter. Same thing, got her birth date. You need her birth date and her name because the birth date shows up in the trust and in the will. So if it's not in there, it's going to be an error. we don't really need her. Oh, they didn't put whose child it was. These are John and Jane joint child. That's really important. So let's see if we did the same thing for William. Let's see. Yeah, they answered that question. So, if they don't answer some of these questions, then the documents aren't going to be correct. There'll be errors in it. So we can just save that to say, okay. Other important people. Well, if you'd looked at the video, the tutorial I did for the client, you'll see that's where these are all explained in great detail, all these different other important people and how important it is that other important people be named here and institutions and especially that their role be provided. If you look at Vanguard, for instance, you see the role of Vanguard as a financial institution. And if you don't check the role, then that particular person or entity won't be available in the drop-down list. Like for the banks, for instance, it just wouldn't be there. So you couldn't select it if you don't have this checked. I'll just say okay to that. I think all of these different important people are fine there. There's a lot of, because it's an example of different types of assets, there's a lot of things that maybe wouldn't be in the average person's other important people, like computer share, and maybe these are timeshare, so there's Marriott, they own stock and certificate form. That's why computer share, Nike's in here because John has options, stock options from Nike. Jane has a business, etc. North Dakota, #1 oil, that's because they own oil or gas leases in another state. No disinherited people. They did put their information in about I guess they didn't. Well, maybe they don't have anybody, but that's a good opportunity here to suggest maybe a financial planner or an accountant to them. Additional information, it goes through all, this is, pertains to John. Looks like it's pretty accurate, pretty good. Same with Jane. Beneficiary information. Let's see, they want to have a trust. They've got minor children, trust till age 30. If we go to our parents, if not to our alive brothers and sisters. So it's probably like all, to heirs, half and half to heirs. That would maybe something we'll talk to them about before you do the final documents. Personal information, the will. Okay. Now, they filled this out. Sometimes if you're talking to the clients, like on the phone, before you send them the link, you can go over a lot of this and kind of guide them a little bit. I sometimes do a Zoom conference with them if they're on the phone and kind of just explain to them how this form works, explain how important it is that they list the people who are the other important people. Explain to them that it might be smart to click the arrow like this to kind of tighten up the form to make it easier to navigate through the form. We talk about, maybe half to heirs of husband, half to heirs of wife, stuff like that. And then you can send them, but maybe they don't know the addresses for all these people. You can say, well, okay, you go work on the form and provide that information. It just depends. Sometimes I think maybe that's a better way to go because that way that you're sure they understand how the form works, and you can even talk about their accounts down here, and just go through and say, well, where do you have your banks? And you can go up here and type up Chase, but you don't necessarily have to put in put the address in. You can say, you guys put the address in, things like that. So you can kind of get them started and show them how to enter some of these different assets. And maybe it's more efficient that way. But in any event, and down here, of course, you might want to know who referred people, and that's a good thing to know. And if there's information that is missing here that you don't have, of course, what I normally do is have a Zoom conference after we get the form, and we kind of go over the whole thing again and kind of talk about what we're going to do, what kind of trust they're going to have, different aspects about the trust for the children, get that all straightened out and put in the client interview, make notes about that here, and save it. So if it all looks good to you at this point, you can go create a document. And what that does is it, again, recreates the client interview in Word, and you just then overwrite the version you have earlier, and this would have all the current information. So if I click create documents, you see, it's going to again create the client interview here. So again, I would just to save it, I'm going to click on it and I'm going to save it up here. I'll just save it again. This one, I'm going to resave it because this doesn't have the same name. But normally I would have typed in the name of the spouse and I could just say, overwrite it. So just save it up there. So now I have it. And if I want to look at it right now, I can just go to the downloads and take a look at it. And it opens up. But what I'm going to do is use this client interview Word document in the next step where we're going to actually start creating the documents, the explanatory material, the trust, the pour-over wills, the powers of attorney, advance directive, the asset spreadsheet, and the funding documents all will be based on the information in this client interview. And you can just have it up and use it as a resource so you know what is going to be filled in. One thing I know, I didn't mention this. Let's open it up again and review it again because I wanted to point out one more thing about, I kind of glossed over this information here about the personal rep. Now, if they know who the people are, who, say in this case, they have minor children, the children aren't going to be the representatives. So we went through with them on the phone and I got the names of these other important people like the brother and the sister and got that entered with them so that it's there. And see these people like Robert. Robert is a fiduciary, so he's a potential successor trustee. And so when I was talking to him before I sent the link out to them, we kind of did quite a bit of input and we started going through this personal representative and I just kind of guided them through it, asked questions. And of course, here, the way this template works is that if they're the same, you say yes. Now it says, so this is the representative for John. Jane would be, the first, and then his brother, and then his sister-in-law in that order. But you see, if it's the same, then for Jane over here, it's going to be John, Robert, and Sandra. Automatically, it does that. And then the power of attorney, it's the same thing for them. For John, it'd be Jane, then Robert, then Sandra. Then you click the arrow, closes it up. The advance directive, they're the same. Now, a lot of times the advance directives might be different. Maybe they'll be different for the wife and the husband, but in this case, they're the same. And then we have all the asset information. And now I've already saved it, so I don't have to create another document. If I just click finish later, it's not going to create a document. It's just going to, just do this. Well, that's the end of this video, and this kind of shows you how you use the client interview as the basis for doing the plan. And it's different than the old NobleForms on hot docs because they're, the client interview was, you had to get the information from Adobe, and it just was much, much more cumbersome. This is really efficient, and you can use it in many different ways, whether you just have the client fill it out or whether you work with the client to fill it out. It's up to you what works better for your workflow. So the next video is going to be, we're going to launch into showing you how to use the information from the client interview form to create the various documents in the estate plan. So stay tuned.